have to re-equip if it's to play a role on the global stage.
The international environment is becoming more threatening, particularly because of Russia as a direct threat to NATO areas. And of course, Chinese assertiveness is growing almost by the day. And that still leaves other problems like terrorism and Islamic fundamentalism. You know, there's no shortage of difficulties that the MOD has to face.
The government's added Israel and Sri Lanka to the list of countries where travellers returning home do not have to quarantine. The change comes into force on Saturday and will apply to people living in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. The government set out details of £300 million in support for sports which are struggling this winter because of lack of fans and income. Netball, badminton, rugby union and rugby league are all receiving a share of funding. Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden said the package, mainly made up of low-interest loans, will be vital.
We've never said we'll make good all the losses. What we have said is that we will give them what they need to survive. And so if you take something like, say, rugby union, they're not going to have the matches at Twickenham, and they could sell those matches out several times over. The sport's going to be in disarray without that support.
The prestigious Booker Prize for Fiction has been won by the Scottish fashion designer Douglas Stewart for his debut novel Shaggy Babe, who takes home a prize of £50,000. And the weather, a cold night with rain in the west. It will be wet and windy tomorrow, but feel milder. And that's the BBC News at 8:03.
All right, give me a seat.
Anticipation like this.
Welcome, everyone. I've been so looking forward to this.
Has been decades in the making.
Thank you, Radio 2, for having me.
In Concert 50.
Celebrating 50 years with 50 live performances from the 70s to today. Bon Jovi, Annie Lennox, Radiohead, Paul Weller, Take That, Ed Sheeran, and more.
I think you're representing every era.
BBC Radio 2's In Concert 50.
Download the BBC Sounds app to discover the full lineup.
Shall we do this?
Do it.
In the house, USA.
This is The Players.
Welcome to The Players.
Picture of me that I'm really regretting a Cowboys hat.
The podcast that flips the script on how we talk football.
I've experienced a lot of stuff that no one should ever experience.
What really goes on and off the pitch.
Okay, I'll shoot it, and then I shot it. Yeah, and then I just shot it. Pretty sick shot though.
I'm passing the mic to those who know it best. The players themselves.
I still get upset about a penalty I took when I was 12. If I scored, everyone got a free pair of boots, and I missed, and everyone got a boot bag.
It was like squeaky bum time, basically.
Did you just say squeaky bum time?
Squeaky bum time.
Right, yeah.
You're listening to The Players with Beck Smith.
With me on The Players this week, we have 2 World Cup winners and Manchester City newbies, Rose Lavelle and Sam Mewis. It's so nice to hear an American accent.
Yeah, well, here you go. You've got 2 right here.
Yeah, I used to captain New Zealand, so that always threw everybody for a loop. They're like, what? So today we're at the home of one of the world's best football clubs. So no surprise, I find myself with 2 champions. And we'll be talking about what it takes to be the best. So from your perspective of the next generation, or as I like to call you guys, the young guns. No? Didn't like that one?
Oh, no, we like it. We like it a lot. We accept.
You accept? The young guns? And you're both playing for Manchester City, and it's your first time outside the U.S., right? Playing. How has that been, adjusting? Any sort of nerves coming over the pond?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was definitely nerves because we knew it would be different, and I think you always anticipate that you're gonna change, but I think when there's that adjustment period, there is kind of I don't know, I feel like I was definitely really nervous when I first came in, but I think all the girls were so welcoming and so nice, so it definitely made it a lot easier, and now it's so fun, and doing a stand is even more fun.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think knowing that Rose was coming too definitely made the decision and the first couple weeks a little bit easier. I think in a new environment, you're challenged in all these new ways, but I think it's been really helpful for both of us to have someone that we're so comfortable with and that knows us away from here. So it's kind of that piece of just home and being yourself that's brings an element of ease to a new situation. So that's been really helpful.
Yeah,
you worded that way better than I did.
Typical. Sorry.
Rose, what were you most nervous about moving over here?
I don't know, everything. I mean, I'm a huge homebody. So I think that was kind of the big decision for me was being far from I think just like experiencing a different style and a different like training environment, I was just like, I was nervous, but I feel good now.
Yeah. When you say style, you mean clothes too, or playing style?
Yeah, both of them. We were talking before how I thought coming over here that I feel like my style is I just like dress like a slob. So I like thought that I wasn't gonna be able to dress like a slob because I feel like everyone's like so much more put together here.
Do you feel that way still being here?
I do feel like people are more put together, but I feel comfortable dressing like a slob still.
It's funny because people were like, oh, it's going to be so easy. Like, they speak the language, everything's the same, but not to be like a weirdo about it, but there are like little cultural differences that you like kind of have to learn about.
Yeah, like when people go like, you all right?
Yeah.
And me and
you're
Sam
like,
were
yeah, I'm fine. Like, do I look sad? Like, I'm literally fine. Like, are you okay?
And what they mean is like,
How are you?
doing?
So now my automatic response is someone will say, you okay? And I go, yeah, I'm good, thanks. How are you? I'm trying to change them back to my way.
Yeah, it is a little bit weird getting into the languages because like you said, it is English, but like my parents are Kiwis, and so they say things like, are you going to go to the loo? And my friends as kids, they were like, the what? Sorry? What are the other things that you've noticed that are different here?
I've been joking with Kira a little bit, like, you have to like accept our culture, but I just mean things like we'll wear something that she thinks is funny and she'll make fun of us, and I'm like, you'd be more accepting of our culture, but it's a joke and it's all like well and good and everybody obviously is like so great. But I just think like little things. I don't know if I can think of a good example.
People have said house tricks.
House
Have
tricks.
you heard of that one?
Oh,
Yeah,
like,
me
how are
neither.
things?
Yeah, I think it was just like, how are things? But I didn't even know how to respond. I was like,
I don't know her, actually.
I don't know.
How is
I don't
tricks?
know how it is.
Couldn't tell ya.
Yeah.
So I wrote down some of the Manchester slang for you because when I moved over to the multiple different countries that I was in as well, I was kind of like, what are you talking about? Because I've got some for you, but we'll do it in a little bit of a quiz if that's cool. Because Sam, I heard that you were good in school actually at UCLA.
Did Rose tell you that?
One Rose told me that. I actually studied
English.
There you go.
Yeah.
This will be very helpful for you, expanding your
My
English
vocabulary.
universe. Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. What did you study in Wisconsin, Rose?
Sociology.
Nice. There you go. This is going to be very helpful as well. Right. So, what does it mean when a person from Manchester says mint?
I feel like I've heard of that one, but
It's like
like
that's
right
like nice or fresh or like good. Like that's nice.
Yes.
Right?
Ding, ding.
Sure.
1 point. Yes.
Like that's a mint new
Pants.
Pants.
Speaking of pants, Rose, where did you get those sweatpants? They're very cool.
I got them from this like little Australian shop.
They're very cool, right?
Yeah.
She got so many comments on them today.
I know. They've been like a hot topic for today.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like.
They're like very understated too. Like I'm surprised so many people were commenting.
I know. They're
But
not like
that's
rainbow
something
tie-dye.
they do here. If you
They're
wear
totally
anything,
understated.
if you wear anything out of the norm, it's like, hey, like I wore a camo sweatshirt yesterday and everybody was like, where's Sam? And I was like, I'm just wearing a camo sweatshirt. I'm sorry.
They don't have camo in the UK?
Like they do, but they just find something to make fun of you about and they latch onto it. And then if you like react, they like go even harder.
Do you make fun back? Do you
I
feel
try, but
comfortable?
I'm like a gentle giant, so usually I just like take it.
And when you say gentle giant, you mean like because of your height or because of...
Yeah.
You're much taller than actually I thought you were.
Yeah.
It's a good thing though,
Yeah.
right?
No, it's great. No complaints.
Right, so mint means good. Well done. Next one is engen.
Like what's engen?
Can you use it in a sentence?
Like, she's looking engen. She's engen today. It means to describe something that is pretty bad or feeling or looking rough. So,
I feel like they'd say mingin.
yeah, mingin's another one.
Yeah.
I think that might be a swear word. I'm not
sorry.
100% sure. I think it's okay. I think. I'm not sure. All good. What about brew?
Is that
Coffee.
Close.
tea?
Yes.
Come on, Lois. We're England.
Scran.
learn. I don't know that one.
Food. Yeah, there you go.
So this is, I don't know if this is just a willy-nilly, Sam. You can say whatever you feel like talking about. But they call lunch dinner and dinner tea.
Yeah.
Somebody
was
like,
like,
here
Pat
at
cooked
noon,
you
and someone goes, are you going to dinner? And I'm like, later. But they mean lunch, and then they'll make tea, and it's dinner.
Yeah.
Somebody the other day asked me, like, oh, did you like Pat cooked you tea? Or like, how was Pat's tea?
Yeah.
And I was like,
I don't
recall.
Drinking any tea.
Yeah.
Good. I think you guys did well. I think you did win, Sam.
I didn't know it was a competition, but
If I would have known, I would have done better.
I don't think so.
How was it at the World Cup? Like, how, we're looking back now, I mean, you get asked this probably a gazillion times, but how was it for you?
Stressful.
Yeah, that was my first word. It was going to be stressful.
Yeah, it was stressful. I mean, it happens once every 4 years, and like, it's just like you have to be so turned on every moment because like the turnaround to the next game is so soon. So it's like whether you win or lose, you like don't really have time to like dwell on it. It's kind of like recover and get ready for the next game. So I feel like you're just on this like emotional high.
Oh.
Yeah. Well, like, yeah.
on level like this, and I was like a treadmill.
Yeah, like, well, yeah, though. Like, you're just like kind of like have to be like in this high pressure, high emotion moment for like a month. I mean, it was stressful, but then obviously it's like that's what you like work your whole life towards. So
I feel like in like your normal life, you have like kind of a balance. Like you go to training and then you go home and you make dinner and you have like time with your family or your dog, or you kind of have this balance of like soccer and everything else. But I feel like, and I feel like in moments like that, it's like you have one thing to do and like there's no time for anything else and there's no like room for anything else. So it's what am I doing right now to get ready for this next game? And that could be like hanging out with your teammates. Like we had moments where we were like dancing and laughing, but I think even that was like this like necessary release. We needed just a minute to like let loose and laugh it off for a second before we were back to, okay, let's go eat again and let's go stretch again and let's go watch film again. It was very like one track, like one focus for like the whole time.
Did you guys have any expectations going into it?
I don't know. I don't like really know what I expected, but I feel like we had so many like veteran players that had been through it before, so it was nice to like kind of have them to follow and learn from throughout it. But yeah, I don't really like know what I
think
expected.
The only thing I would point to was like, I know we've both played in Youth World Cup, so I think that like the structure of it was actually really helpful to know like, okay, you're gonna have to like play and then travel and then play again and then travel again. And so having been through that experience and being prepared for like the ebbs and flows of like, you're in a new hotel now and now you have new food to adjust to. But I think like because there are like so many eyes on the like full World Cup, it had this other element of just like anxiety and stress that like I didn't really anticipate feeling so much of. But like Rose said, I actually think the veterans like were able to take a lot of that away from us and say like, you guys just focus on soccer, like we've been through this and like we'll handle it. And in that way they like led us so well and like enabled us to just focus on playing.
That's so cool. What do you mean they led like they let you play? What did they?
When the media was kind of on us about the Thailand game and the score, and I think that some of our veteran players like Alex and Pino were kind of just like, we will handle the media, like you guys didn't do anything wrong, let us take care of this, keep focused on the next game, and kind of like protected us and shielded us from that a little bit, which I think just like demonstrated how willing they were to do whatever was necessary for the team. And it made me just really appreciate in that moment that we had players who, one, were capable of doing that and kind of putting the brunt of like the media on them, but recognizing that we needed that from them and that it was going to be really important for the team for them to kind of handle it.
What was your favorite part about the World Cup?
Mine was having my family there. I think I just remember before the first game, like knowing my parents were in the stands and just kind of having this moment of like, they got me here and now I can like kind of make it all worth it for them, and just having this like emotional moment of like it kind of came full circle that they drove me everywhere and they paid for everything and they like went through all these sacrifices for me, but that it all like kind of worked out. So I just think sharing with my parents and my husband too, who was there, was just like, I know how much they've been through to help me get here, so it was really nice to share it with them.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Yeah, I feel like it was really nice. The last game, like at the end, they were all sitting like close enough to the field that we all like were able to like go up and like hug all our friends and family, and I feel like that was like so special to be able to share that moment with them in the moment, not just like after the game, which I feel like is how it usually goes when you're in those games. It's like you get done, go in the locker room, and then see them after the game, but to be able to like share that moment with them on the field immediately after was like really, really special.
That's cool, because then you also scored in the final. Do you remember that? Remember that thing? Yeah. Should we take a look at it? Do you need a reminder? Do you need a reminder?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, go on. Let's have a look. Can we?
I want to look.
So can you walk us through this? Because Sam, was it Crystal won the ball and then she got it to you, so you actually passed it to Rose.
Yep. Best friend pass.
Baby. The secret of the success is you two combining together. So what, you pick it up here and then you're running.
Yeah. Well, I do remember, like, I feel like there was so much that went in, like, leading up to that play. Like, obviously Crystal stops their counterattack, and I feel like the whole game, like, we didn't have a lot of space to like dribble and transition on them. I feel like they were doing a really good job of stopping that. So I feel like Crystal kind of like kick-started that transition, and then like Sam did a great job drawing the players in.
To pass you a 5-yard pass.
It was a good 5-yard pass though.
You drew like the midfield in, and then I feel like I kind of had some open space, so I took it, and then I remember I was just kind of waiting for one of the center backs to like step to me so I could like slot it to Alex, and I think Alex was doing a really good job like keeping the center backs occupied and kind of like thinking about her, and then they like didn't step to me, so I was like, okay, so I guess I'll shoot it, and then I shot it. There was like a lot of like people obviously that like made that happen, and a lot of moving pieces to it, so it was nice.
Yeah, just shrug it like, and then I just shot it. Pretty sick shot though, huh?
I just remember being like really relieved after, because I feel like it was just like we like got the insurance goal, and then I felt like with the way things were going, like if we just kind of buckled down and like defended, then I was like, okay, we got it. Yeah.
So moving forward, because you guys are kind of like the next gen, right? So, a lot of players are going to be moving on, and how do you want to take that team forward? Would you just sort of follow in the same footsteps, or are there things that you kind of would do differently or you want to bring into the team?
I mean, I feel like the biggest thing we always talk about with the team is like the mentality, and I feel like growing up and like watching, I was like obviously a super fan for the national team, and I feel like when you would watch them, like you could like see it and sense like the mentality of just like you can never count them out. Like it could be they could be losing by however many goals, and like they're still in the game.
Yeah, so
so it's like I always like could see it just like when I'm growing up, but then I think to actually like be in it and be a part of it, it's like a whole nother level that I didn't even realize. So I feel like, and that's like something starting all the way back to like when it first started. Like it's just kind of been this legacy that I feel like has like continued on with every national team. Like players just like pass it on, and I think it's like one of our biggest strengths. So I feel like that's like kind of one of our, I don't know, duties?
Yeah.
Is that what you would say?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think from the outside, it's like, oh, that's so incredible that they have that. But then I think on the inside, it's like, it can be really like hard to maintain and like keep the standard there all the time. And I think it comes from the veteran players like really demanding the most from us, and like it's not easy to be on the team. You have to perform well every day and be consistent and do all the extra little things all the time. So I think that like if that responsibility ever does get passed on to us, if we're the veterans someday, like I think knowing that not only do we have to uphold that ourselves, but we have to expect that from younger players as well, is one of the things I'd say like needs to be maintained and like passed on, because the players we have now have done such a good job of that, and the players before them did too.
And do you feel that there's a pressure to be the best because of that legacy?
Yeah, I mean, I think that like we are expected to win ourselves. We expect that from ourselves. I think our federation, our country expects that from us. I think that that's a good thing. Like I think It helps us uphold the standards and keep the standards really high. And I think the experiences that we've had from winning are ones that we bring to every game we go into. So it's kind of a positive thing. But yeah, I think there is an expectation that even just from ourselves that we want to win all the time.
Yeah, and having lived outside of the U.S. too, like, you know, in Germany or Sweden, and you play with those teams and those players, it really is, I think, the one thing that sort of defines the American way of playing. So I remember in 2015, I was on the organizing side of it from FIFA, and I was watching the first games of the U.S., and I was like, they don't look good. Like, they really are not looking that strong. Do you remember the beginning of the tournament?
It like started kind of rocky, didn't it?
It totally did. And then it's like every game they got better and better. And then like final 5-2, you're just like, even if the U.S. doesn't play well, they'll win.
Yeah, I think that's like a staple of the team. Like, it's not always pretty, but you find a way to win. And that's like very American, I guess. Yeah. But like, I feel like being on the national team now, like, I'm so like proud of that. And I think there's a view that would say like something different, that there are other things that are more important. But I just feel like winning like really brings the group together in a way that nothing else does. And so if you can fight to pull out the win, even when you maybe haven't played your best, or when it's been like a really tough game, or you've been behind, like that like camaraderie that you get from coming back or from fighting for it is just like one of the best things a team can have.
And just wrapping up with the World Cup stuff, did you guys have any sort of what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas stories or parties? I mean, I know you're not going to say anything, Sam.
No, I mean, whatever. It's fine. Like, I'm 28 years old.
Yeah, I didn't say anything.
We had a pool party, and the story I tell, that's like, I can tell it. I had a couple drinks, and I was running around chest bumping people.
Yep.
And I chest bumped Pino so hard her sunglasses fell off and broke. And I like had to Venmo her for them, because I was like mortified that I did that. But then like another funny part of the story is when I woke up, my own sunglasses were sitting there. It was such an expensive day. Just because of like my poor behavior. So
it sounds worth it though.
It was so, well, not that day.
Just
there were other parts of it that were like so worth it and so fun, but that day was just like, Sam, come on.
You probably needed it though after like at least a month of
we needed to let
high
loose.
intensity.
It was fun. We were really lucky to have like such fun celebrations.
I'm gonna ask you about your U.S. teammates if you don't mind. Who's the funniest one on the team?
Pino.
Yeah, Pino's funny.
Like just witty, like just has something hilarious to say about everything. Like, she's so funny.
And Sam. I think Sam's so funny. Sam's just like, I always say this, but
Rose just laughs at everything I do, even if it's like a serious thing. Like, I'll like
throw her back out.
Yeah, I throw my back out, and Rose is sitting there giggling, and I'm like, it's not a joke. Perfect. I don't know if that's a career.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Stand up, maybe not. Who's always late or last one to arrive?
I mean, nobody's like late to meetings, but like I kind of think Allie Long is late sometimes. No.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
But like not in a bad way.
Late, but
like just will be like, oh, wait for me.
Yeah.
Who listens to terrible music?
Well, Crystal is the DJ in the locker room, and it's always good. So
yeah,
that's a fun
nice
fact, I guess.
Bad music, I don't know. Gosh, we're being like so boring.
I know. Sorry.
Best dancer.
We're the most boring people on the team.
Yeah.
Yes.
Best dancer, probably Crystal or Sonnet.
Yeah,
Crystal
really
actually,
good.
And then like Sonnet can compete, but
Yeah.
she's still second place.
Oh yeah, she's good.
Yeah.
Best singer?
Rose is actually a good singer, but she acts like she's like not serious, but it's good. Crystal's good.
What's
Not
your
really.
go-to song?
I was going to say we've been singing, I keep dancing on my own. Thanks.
Sorry.
The song, we've been listening to this song for like a month straight.
It's Robin, or is it another version of Robin?
I listened to a cover of it that I thought was the original.
Real one, and I was like, that's not the real one.
And then we were fighting over whose was the real one.
But Robin is the real one, right?
She's so good. Yeah, she's great in concert too. If you've never seen it.
That's just the one song I know.
Yeah, that's fine. It's all good. Who's the loudest on the team?
I like yell and I'm like obnoxious, like as usual. I just feel like everybody's like, what?
I feel like when we're in the U.S., if like somebody like shanks a ball or like does something bad, they'll like yell at themselves.
Shoot!
Yeah. Shoot!
Gosh
like,
darn,
yell.
golly gee.
So I feel like we're all used to that, but even in the U.S., Sam's still the loudest one. So like now coming here, and like nobody does that.
Yeah.
Like everyone like makes a mistake and like maybe will silently mumble to themselves.
Yeah.
That's it. But like Sam.
And then I still have like random outbursts.
How did you guys meet? Was it through the national team?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is where we like don't really know.
Well, yeah. Well, I know were we roommates in Hawaii? And then like I think Rose is just like she like this. Sam, stop stuttering. She like wants to laugh at everything. So I think that when we were roommates for the first time, like something funny would happen and we'd like bond over it. And it was like so fun to like start being friends with her because like everything was funny and we started having all these like inside jokes.
It was the
yeah, like when I was FaceTiming and you recorded me. Yeah, it was so. See, like we've referenced inside jokes so many times, so I just feel like if you're like around her, like you have to just like laugh and get along, and like it's been so fun.
How long ago was that?
It was 2015.
Was it?
Yeah, it was a Victory tour.
Oh yeah, it was.
And like we had known each other before that. Like we probably had a 23s camp.
Yeah.
Together or something, but I am a little bit older, so we didn't like grow up in the youth teams together.
Yeah. Oh, okay, that's right, because you're older, so you missed the.
I'm 28.
That's why we laughed when you said the young guns.
Yeah, because everyone like
not young?
assumes I'm like Rose's age, and then.
Thank you guys so much, genuinely, for hanging out and for sharing all your fun stories, and also just for making sort of the next generation of football fun and really, really exciting to watch. And I really, really look forward to seeing you guys here in the WSL and also with the national team, and wish you guys all the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is The Players.
Thanks everyone for listening to The Players, which has been brought to you by BBC Sport and Copa 90. And next week, we're going to be hearing from PSG teammates Nadia Nadim and Christiane Enver. So make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Up next on 5 Live, it's Costello and Bunce, and they're joined by Callum Smith, who will be looking ahead to his world title fight against Canelo Alvarez.
Thank you, Bex. Yes, a massive fight for the end of the year announced in the last day or two. Callum Smith defending his world super middleweight title against the man who some consider to be the #1 fighter on the planet right now in Saul Canelo Alvarez. And Steve, in the early hours of Sunday before Christmas, what an end to the year.
This year's been, well, it's been relentless in some ways. Even though there was no boxing for 3 or 4 months, we just had this wave, this enormous crush of fights at the end, squashed into a December. It was crazy. And then suddenly we get the announcement that the most popular and most successful financially boxer in the world, Canelo Alvarez, has done the dip. Eeny, meeny, miny, mo, and he's picked Liverpool's Callum Smith, unbeaten, the #1 super middleweight in the world, for his end-of-year fight. It seemed too good to be true. It came from absolutely nowhere, but it's actually happening. It's the type of fight, Mike, that if we schedule it for June of next year, we'd talk about it every week between now and June, but we haven't. We've got about 32 days.
And Callum has He's locked himself away in the gym to get ready for the biggest night of his life, and we'll track him down for our next full Costello at Bunce podcast. That's coming up on Monday. But tonight we're joined by the man who'll be right there with him in the corner, his trainer, Joe Gallagher. Joe, great to have you with us. And tell me first about the history of this fight, when it could have happened, when it didn't happen, and all the way around to the circumstances now and how it's come about for right now.
How long have you got, Mike? I'll go back as far as I think last time I seen you boys was over in New York, just before Canelo mentioned a possibility of Callum Smith, and it was the first time he sort of like name checked him or referenced him in some way. Callum then performed against Hassan Nadam, and we never really heard nothing then after that.
So we're going back 18 months, Joe.
Yeah, 18 months. That's in May, June, the night Anthony Joshua got beat. Obviously we went into the beginning of 2020 and it became a two-horse race between Callum and Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe was in the frame. Obviously then, I think, for all accounts, Billy Joe got the nod and the pandemic happened. Everyone went into lockdown. And that was it then. Then all of a sudden the boxing kicked up again and there was talks, and then obviously we've seen all the Canelo litigation going on with the Zone and Golden Boy, and that got resolved, and then Callum was looking at opponents, drew a short list up, and then his name was mentioned again, and it began to feel a little bit when Floyd Mayweather used to tease Amir Khan, and he had a poll with Khan and Madonna for the fight, and we always thought, oh, we're not going through this again. And we said, no, listen, we're fighting at the end of December, let's do a short list and carry on. But then it gained momentum, and like you say, once it then got resolved, this situation in that litigation, what happened there with Golden Boy in the Zone, it was quite adamant that it'd be Caleb Plant, and he wanted to come back with a bang. Caleb Plant, Callum Smith, but I've also heard names of a Truax, WBC with Yildirim, and a Eubank Jr. was an outsider. And eventually, on the day of the announcement, we woke up and Canelo's making an announcement. I'm phoning Callum, I'm phoning Sean, his lawyer, and we're like, what's this about? And we all thought, as I said to you earlier, it pulled on us, it bluffed us, it was got to be Caleb Plant. And 7, 8 o'clock that evening, me and Sean were still going through the contract, still sorting out the details. And I think it was literally, Callum would say, well, we got a real positive vibe that he may have it at 10:30. Now the announcement was at 11 o'clock. And yet the week before, and the thing with it, Steve, Mike, journalists like yourselves in America, people in promotional companies texting me, congratulations on the fight, this, and I did put up week before fake news, because it wasn't done far from it, and it was literally 5 minutes before the announcement that the fight and the deal was done, and we all thought, and still watched the Instagram, because we still thought it might come out and go Caleb Plant. It was just really surreal to be in it, and the adrenaline afterwards, I don't think none of us slept till 2 o'clock in the morning then after that, because we've got it, but that's how close it had been. And first of all, I'm going to take a breath. I'll let you see what you say.
And given it's all happened in the end so quickly, 18 months, and then it happened so quickly, Joe, what are your plans between now and then, with all the restrictions that are in place and around quarantine, and what allowances have you got through elite sport? What have you been able to decipher so far?
Mike, it's mad. It's like, it was announced the other day, he's having his 30-day check weight tomorrow, and we're just like, it's like, what I have got to say, maybe very much years ago, James DeGale fighting for the British title in 8 or 9 fight set the new tone of, it isn't 20 fights to learn no more. If you're good enough, you're going. I think Callum Smith, by announcing to fight the pound for pound #1 on 4 weeks' notice in this current climate, is saying to promoters now, well, if he can do it, you can do it. And credit to Callum Smith. I'm not saying let's wait till the crowd. No, I want my 10 weeks training. I want this, I want that. We're in training. But you know, and I know, as Ricky Hatton would say, you train for an opponent, but then there's an opponent and there's that fear factor, and fair play to Callum Smith deciding to go, Joe, what? No, we've got to do this. It's one opportunity and we're going to go and do it, and fair play to him. So I feel a bit sad for him, Mike and Steve, because he's not getting that big fight build-up, that 10 weeks, then press conferences to the side of the world, isn't having the 50,000. But what he's doing is getting Canelo in the ring, and we've got to make the most of it. And being around a Canelo fight week, as you boys have seen, is different to any.
And as you've seen,
yeah, it's like a Mayweather, it's like a McGregor, and Callum's been there with Liam. So when people used to say Crawler looks so relaxed walking through, yeah, because he's been in everyone's corner to big fights. Callum's the same, he's been there with all his brothers, so we're more prepared, we're experienced. We've just got to go and make the best of it that we can do, and I think it's got to be such an exciting fight. I'm so excited for it. And when we beat George Groves, it was a great night. I was disappointed that Callum didn't get to show everything that he still has, and I think Canelo fancied the chance with Callum once he'd seen the Ryder fight, and I think if you think that's the Callum that's got to turn up, you're hugely mistaken.
Now, Joe, obviously it's going to be 30 days and a couple of extras before the fight, from the official announcement to the first bell. But I spoke to you in August, and I think I texted you in September and said, is Callum going to be fighting? You said, yeah, might be in September, might be October, might be November. So the question I'm going to ask you seems like an odd one, but is there a chance that he's been in the gym and nearly ready for too long, Joe?
No. Steve, you've been around us as well, and like I say, you, Mike, you're part of the old school that you see the champs camp days where fighters were in the gym, they're only 7-8 pounds, the phone can always ring, and I've always been that with my fighters, a Quigg, a Crawler, a Callum Smith, Callum Johnson, and I understand, but it's making sure they're doing the right work. He's always kept in the gym doing his S&C, his strength work, his weight's very good. Callum Smith can go out of camp and have 2 months off and come back in and be like, was it 13-2, 13-3? At the moment, it's like 10, 12, 11. He has no problem. He's one of them kids. He's a freak of nature. So when we say 12, we do like heavyweight 12-7. It's like, that's too. We can do it easy. But the sparring, and we've been doing lots of pad work, just jigsaw work, Steve. We've not been coming in going 8 rounds that and 10 reps that and track that. But we've been coming over like old fighters used to do. You come in, you do a bit of shadow, a bit of skip. I'll do 6 bags today. Joe, I'll do 4 pads. I'll do a bit of tech work. So it's just been ticking over stuff, but now foot's to the floor. We've got our 2.5 weeks of intense sparring. We've got our sparring partners that I think will be able to do the job. And
performance against George Groves, which was mind-blowing. Is Callum somebody who fights to the level of his opponent?
yeah, it is, Mike. His record suggests that, and if you look at early on in his career, Patrick Mendon, his 7th fight, was no mud. He fought for the English to
fighter.
1 round. Then he had the huge derby, packed out Echo Arena, Rocky Fielding, 1 round. Then he went on and fought for the European against a good fighter who just lost on points to 12 rounds to James DeGale, 1 round. George Groves, Fairfax up. There you go, round 7. I'm not going to turn around and say he wasn't motivated for John Ryder. He was. There's a John Ryder and a Canelo. Maybe he took his eye off, maybe not, but he still won. Maybe we have to thank John Ryder, because you know how it goes. A bad loss can get that fight for you. And we may have to thank John Ryder for that and pull it off. In the same way, people are saying Callum didn't perform against Nicky Holskin, but it's set him up to prove everyone wrong. George Groves, although Callum broke a world record that night for most jabs thrown in a world title super middleweight bout. But yeah, the level of performance, and this is elite, and this is what he's dreamed for, this is what he wanted, and it's so easily could have gone, Joe, I'll wait till there's a crowd. Canelo isn't getting the money he wanted. Callum isn't getting the money he wanted. Fair play to them. They're absolutely going at it.
Joe, you're interested in the money, and obviously I'm not expecting you to give me any figures, but when did you agree the money? I mean, the fight was agreed in theory, 4, 5, 6 days ago or whatever, but when was the figure you're getting first mentioned to you? Was that back in June, July, August, September?
No, I'd say it was around 9:30 on the night of the announcement.
Wow. We're in uncharted territory here. This is look. If we'd have been talking about something like this 2 years ago, a guy's going to fight Canelo Alvarez. We don't know where it's going to be. We don't know what we're getting, but we're going to do a deal in the next hour. Then we're going to announce it. People would have thought, and we're going to fight him in 32 days. People would think you're crazy.
Oh, it's just mad. But what a mad year 2021. Hey, to top it off, Callum absolutely beating and destroying him. It'll just be like, I do feel, and I've said it a long time, there's a real lot of good new fighters come on, the pound for pounds of your Manny Pacquiao's, your Floyd Mayweather's, and obviously that era that we've had in the UK of Amir Khan, Kell Brooks. You've just seen Loma getting beat. All of a sudden you've got Usyk coming through Loma, Shakur Stevenson, Terence Crawford, Callum Smith. Yeah, let's just wait and see. You boys are very good. I was trying to work out the last pound for pound number one in the world British fighter was. I think it was Lennox Lewis. You may tell me different.
Yeah, today Kawasaki might have had a claim, but Kawasaki or Lennox Lewis?
The problem with Kawasaki is he came up in tandem with Mayweather as well, didn't he? So
yes,
Pacquiao was around. Work out at the time, because at the time when Joe was flying, Floyd had just beat Ricky, so I didn't know if he was a pound for pound at the time.
Yeah. But probably Lennox then, yeah. So we're talking about in the last 20 years, Lennox probably briefly, and Joe would have had a shout, but as you say, Ricky, literally a week, 2 weeks later, yeah, Mayweather beats Ricky. It's a very good point, Joe. It's a very good point.
So, just all things for motivating, and Callum to go over there, it just proves to everyone he's never afraid of ducking anyone. He's always wanted to win, but he's hung in there, and he can easily go, no, I'll let someone else go, but he's got to go and do it now. He's got the opportunity, and he's got to go and do it. It's just mad how quickly it's happened. Yeah, it took so long. Like I said to you, it was just like a mare. There's the carrot, and you're being led along like a donkey, and then led along, and then obviously you've got it, and it's just like, we came in the gym the next day, we were all a bit tired, because we'd all been up with the adrenaline. We all got up early with the adrenaline, and then we all come into the gym like it was Christmas Day, going, wow, like, right, okay, Christmas has come early, let's go and do this. And him and Callum Johnson had a tear up for 6 rounds, which was brilliant sparring. So I just think they just all got it out of the system.
You should have sold that one online, Joe.
Yeah, never know.
Hey, look, we'll talk game plan and all sorts of things when we get nearer the time, Joe. There's plenty of talking to be done, but really appreciate your time so far, mate. Thank you.
No problem.
Thanks, Joe.
Great, Steve. Thanks, and let's go make a bit of history.
Joe Gallagher, the trainer of Callum Smith, and we could actually see him as well as hear him, Steve, on the Zoom call there, and he's kind of still shaking his head. He can't get his head around the fact that this fight is actually happening 18 months after it was first spoken about.
And within about 35 days of it being officially announced to the first bell, it is completely ridiculous. And you've got to feel for Joe and Callum, because they're the kind of guys that will just embrace this and suck it in, and they deserve it. And Joe lives every single fight with his fighters. It's an interesting fight. It was an interesting fight if we had 10 weeks. It's an interesting fight if we had 6 weeks, 7 weeks. It's a fascinating fight with only 30 days, because we know Canelo's not in the best place, Mike. He's had a really awful year, a tough year, a hard year. Fights fell out of bed because of COVID. Then he fell out with his long-term promoter. Then he fell out with his long-term broadcaster. Lawyers were involved. Fleets of lawyers were involved. That seems to have been resolved. And then he's chosen Callum Smith. Now, I'm not quite sure why he's chosen Callum Smith. I'm going to say it here. I don't think that was a sensible move by Canelo Alvarez, the most popular and the best paid fighter in the world. I don't know why he's chosen Callum Smith. Callum Smith has got all of the things wrong. He's got the dimensions, he's got the hunger, he's got the power, he's got the boxing brain. I'm surprised he's accepted Callum Smith. I think one or two of the Americans that Joe was talking about there, they would have been acceptable and they would have been easily beatable.
Well, as we said earlier, Saul Canelo Alvarez is among the contenders for the status of the world's #1 pound-for-pound fighter at the moment. Another of them, the American Terence Crawford, last weekend beat Britain's Kell Brook in their welterweight world title fight in Las Vegas, Steve. A strange old fight, and the warning signs as far as Kell Brook were concerned were there right from the start.
There's no denying that Kell didn't look right before the first bell. So he got his body into great shape. People talked about him being in the greatest shape he's ever been. And I don't doubt going into the fight, and especially when he spoke to us, that his head was in the right place. But somewhere, Mike, on the day, maybe it was just on the evening, or maybe it was just as he was getting those gloves on, and as he was looking in the mirror with his gloves on in the change room, maybe just tapped his cheeks like fighters do. And maybe he just had some kind of flashback. I'd love to have seen him in the changing room, been there 5 minutes before the fight, just to get a gauge of where his head was. Because you remember there's that famous story you tell about what Eddie Hearn told you, that when Brook went to America to fight Sean Porter for the title and win the title, in a fight that he was an outsider, and it was a great win, and Sean Porter was underestimated, but at the same time was also unbeaten. And it was a great performance that night. And you remember Eddie talks about how calm Kell was, how relaxed he was. Well, I didn't see any of that in the walk to the ring, and I didn't see it in the ring. And as I say, I've got down here, and I'll hold the paper up. I've got down here on this sheet of paper. He didn't look right before the bell. And Mike, as much as he talks about how tough his face is now, he's the $6 million man, because I've got these titanium little plates in each cheek, courtesy of Golovkin's fist, courtesy of Errol Spence's fist. It's in your mind. And we heard him yelping in the Spence fight when those shots were going in. We could hear him suffering. You can't erase that. I can't get rid of that in my head. He can't get rid of that in his head. And it was almost like Crawford landed the ideal shot to land on a damaged cheek. It wasn't on the temple, it wasn't on the chin. Where's this guy's problem? Right on the cheek. And down came that crashing, horrible, short shot, a nasty shot. It was all over then.
So we'll assess, Steve, the greatness of Terence Crawford in a moment, and where he stands and how he compares to some of the greats of years gone by, because Barry McGuigan was saying in his column in the Mirror at the weekend how he believes that Crawford is moving into that elite company now and can be mentioned alongside anybody you care to mention from the history of the welterweight division. But as far as Kell Brook is concerned now, certainly at the elite level, it is all over for him, isn't it? There's no question, because I know Terence Crawford is ranked as the #1 welterweight in the world, and there's no shame in losing to him, but he was given this opportunity. It was a surprise opportunity, and it's not like a professional footballer who can wander down the leagues and still have a lot of fun and still pick up a paycheck. It's not like that. And the worrying thing for me was that pawing away at the cheekbones. He clearly has a problem with those injuries that were sustained in those fights against Spence and against Golovkin. So where does Kell Brook rank, Steve? How highly do we rate him in terms of the all-time British welterweight division? Or if we just narrow that down slightly to our time, both watching and covering big-time boxing, there have been welterweight champions. Lloyd Hannigan and John H. Tracy won versions of the world welterweight title. Both, like Brook, won them on the road, and Brook certainly belongs in that company. If at any stage you saw a fight, in fact, what a great historic fight that would be, Steve. Kell Brook against Lloyd Hannigan, Kell Brook against John H. Tracy. You know, you wouldn't know who would start favourite in either of those two fights.
He can go with John H. Tracy tomorrow, and his best he can beat John H. Tracy, and then if he's having a bad night, John might get to him and win on points. The same thing with Lloyd Hannigan. You know, Lloyd would have to be having a very good night to beat a good Kell Brook. It's as simple as that. However, Mike, with regards to his legacy, we'll move on to if he is going to fight again and where he fights. 17 years a professional, turned professional, making 200 and 300 quid. Fought once where he didn't get paid because the promoter didn't get paid. He won the British title, and then 6 years later he got a world title. That's what used to happen in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s and the 70s. So in that sense, Kell has got a foot in a different camp. We heard him talking lovingly and brilliantly and evocatively about Brendan Ingle earlier in the week, about what the stuff they used to do at Brendan's gym. And because Brendan firmly had a foot and a half in the old days, and only half a foot in the modern days that he shaped. That takes care of that. I'm going to ask you now, if Brook fights again, first thing is, should he fight again? And B, if he fights again, what does he do?
Well, we had a podcast immediately after he was beaten, Steve, by Errol Spence in Sheffield. We recorded the podcast the following morning at the offices and studios of BBC Radio Sheffield, close to the city centre, and we got Dominic Ingle on the phone. And I put it to Dominic Ingle that just as a fan, take away the reporter and commentator status, as a fan, I'd be happy if I never saw Kell Brook in a ring again. That was in mid-2017, and I'll say the same again now, and even more so now, having seen just those images at the weekend. Look, I know he was competitive for 2.5 rounds. I know, according to 2 judges, he was leading going into the 4th round.
But it wasn't a competitive fight, Mike. It wasn't a competitive fight.
It was how quickly it finished, how quickly he folded, and that's what worries me. It's time, I say, for him to walk away with his legacy intact, he will be remembered, if for nothing else, one of the all-time great wins by a British boxer, either in the United States or anywhere away from home. He was a huge underdog against Sean Porter, and not only did he pull it off, he pulled it off on points. There was no shock, no fluke about it. He won that. About people talking about Kell Brook's lifestyle, and there will be concerns about what he feels the void that boxing will leave in his life. I get that, but that to me is not enough reason for him to get back in the ring and to keep getting punished like he was at the weekend. I know it's already surfacing on social media. Some are saying, well, let's revive the prospect of a fight against Amir Khan. That's a fight that, you know, possibly even after the Errol Spence fight, I was happy to take on board. I've no interest in that fight now.
Well, Mike, that fight could possibly happen because there's a lot of Middle East money. Amir's doing an awful lot of work out in the Middle East, in Dubai, Qatar, even Saudi. So there's a possibility that happens there for a lump of change, and it becomes not necessarily an exhibition, but it becomes the type of fight that we don't want to see, but at the same time we'll have to see. That's a possibility. What I don't want is him to have another minor operation to resurrect his face, insist he's looking better and sharper than ever, and then have to drop down considerably, maybe at light middle, and then maybe get a crack at maybe one of the big British guys and on an undercard of a Joshua pay-per-view. I don't want to see him tested like that. That's what I don't want to see that happen. The key is here, let's be brutally honest, is how much of his money he's retained throughout that career. It's 42 fights now, awful lot of pay-per-views, awful lot of TV fights, and an awful lot of rumours. I hope Kell Brook's got 15 million in the bank and he doesn't have to fight again. That's what I want to be hosting on the 6th of December when we can at Cutler's Hall up in Sheffield. I want to be hosting a goodbye to Kell from his fans, his loyal fans in Sheffield. That's what I want to be hosting. I'll do it cut price. I won't charge my full rate. Trust me. I'll come up with a concession. That's what I want to be hosting. I tell you what though, I won't be hosting it because he'll fight on. I just hope it's not in something that we create here. If he fights on, let it be in Qatar, making a fortune against Amir Khan. If he fights on.
And as for Terence Crawford, Steve, as I say, Barry McGuigan and others have said that he now belongs in that elite list. Bob Arum, his promoter, was interviewed afterwards, and he was saying that any of the great welterweights that he's promoted down the years, and of course he was heavily involved in the Four Kings, three of whom boxed in the welterweight division, Sugar Ray Leonard, Tommy Hearns and Roberto Duran, and he's saying that Terence Crawford lives in that kind of company. I wouldn't make him favourite again against any of those, Steve, but certainly he'd be competitive against all three of those. I'd make all three of those favourite. The peak of those against the peak Terence Crawford, but maybe we haven't yet seen the peak Terence Crawford. The way the man is building, that was his 8th successive finish inside the distance, and that's for a man who's moved up 3 weight divisions. And what struck me at the weekend as well, Steve, was we go back to 2014, coincidentally the year that Kell Brook won his world title against Sean Porter. That's when Terence Crawford won a world title for the first time, the lightweight title against Ricky Burns. That performance of Ricky Burns is now gaining in credibility over the years, and quite often you need that distance to get the perspective
appreciate what someone's done.
And to measure a performance. Look, I don't think Ricky was ever in danger. After a bright start, admittedly, he was ever in danger of winning that fight, but at the same time you look back at that result now,
he was there.
And how Crawford's putting these fighters away, that starts to look like a decent performance from Ricky Burns.
Second only to Matthew Hatton pushing in the last couple of rounds, Sol Canelo Alvarez all those millions of years ago, when Matthew came back in round 10 and suddenly Matthew Hatton, the brother, was chasing the great kid. He was only about 17, Sol Canelo Alvarez. Do you remember that 10th round? But the only problem is, as Matthew says, there were another 11 rounds where he bashed me up. Apart from that, I had a really good 10th. Now Bob Arum, was that the interview where he talked about Lomachenko being better than Ali, or was he adjusted that to Lopez being better than Ali? No disrespect to Bob, he would say that. Listen, as far as I'm concerned, Crawford can go and live with those guys. He doesn't beat all of them every night, but on a good night perhaps he does. Does he beat the best Sugar Ray Leonard? No, because I don't think anyone beats the best Sugar Ray Leonard. It took something incredible, ridiculous, and a one-off from Roberto Duran to do it that one particular time. Does he beat a fighter like Roberto Duran at lightweight, light welter or welter? Probably not. but he competes with them, and he really competes with them. Let's get it right. He doesn't make up the numbers. It's that simple. What he needs is a couple of dance partners, because as good as some of the names are, and there's an awful lot of good names. In fact, there are a lot of good names on his record. There's not a lot of that was obvious. You know, there's some really good names on his record, especially World Championship record. But he needs Errol Spence, and he needs someone else. So he could have been lovely to have had Pacquiao 2 years ago, and then Errol Spence, and then maybe Errol Spence again, and then someone. You see my point, mate? I just get the feeling that he you know, and then Keith Thurman. You know, if he'd have had a Keith Thurman and an Errol Spence twice and a Pacquiao twice, and it was, you know, and it would have maybe April of 2021, and he'd had those 4 wins in the previous 18 months. Then I'm saying, you know, we need to adjust George Kimball's great book, The Four Kings, and make it the Four Kings plus a kid from 25 years later as the 5th king. I would be arguing strongly for an inclusion. But we've already missed the window with that. Pacquiao is now too old. Thurman is maybe not as good as he was a year ago. Errol Spence, as Terence Crawford told us, we don't know where he is after the car crash. Let's see how he comes through the Danny Garcia fight, and we'll see where he is after that.
Yeah, I think Crawford is too fresh. He's too ambitious for Keith Thurman. And of course, Thurman was beaten in the middle of last year by Manny Pacquiao. But Manny Pacquiao turns 42 next month. So, you know, the value of a win against Manny Pacquiao is decreasing. Although Manny Pacquiao's most recent form, those wins against Thurman and Adrian Broner, show that he is still more than competitive. But the last fight was in July of last year. By the time they get to the ring, because you remember Terence Crawford told us on the podcast last week, that fight will not happen without crowds. Yeah. So if we're talking March, April of next year, you're talking almost 2 years since Manny Pacquiao has boxed competitively, and he'll be 42 and a half years of age. So, you know, that's a fight that starts to lose its luster. Manny Pacquiao's been surprising us all his career, but that would be something beyond anything that he's ever achieved if he was able to pull that off at 42 and a half.
But he surprised us both ways. He's surprised us in a good way, and he surprised us in that was dreadful way. So he's done it both ways. But wouldn't it have been lovely if it had been Crawford beating Thurman, then Crawford fighting Manny last year? That way, right now, you know, we might be looking forward to a November showdown, which would be the second Errol Spence fight against Crawford, and he would have had Pacquiao and Thurman already, because Thurman 18 months ago, when he would have been unbeaten, when he would have been a different situation than it is now, then Pacquiao went. Not cruel to his overall legacy, not cruel to his earning potential, not cruel to his current position, but maybe timing will be cruel when we look back in 10 and 15 years and 25 years on Terence Crawford, and we go searching for that great Four Kings formula.
That's it from us tonight. Our next pod will be out on Monday, where we'll be looking ahead to Mike Tyson's comeback at the age of 54, believe it or not, against Roy Jones Jr. You can subscribe now, just search Costello and Bunce on BBC Sounds. Up next tonight on 5 Live, Rafa Benitez joins Steve Crossman and Guillaume Balaguer on the EuroLeagues. That's after the 5 Live news.
Digital, BBC Sounds, smart speaker and online.
This is BBC Radio 5 Live. BBC News at 9 o'clock. This is Catherine Cracknell. Labour are demanding the immediate release of a report examining allegations of bullying by the Home Secretary, Priti Patel. Sources say the draft findings concluded in the summer that she broke the rules on ministerial behaviour. She's always denied the claims against her. Our political correspondent Jessica Parker has more details.
There have been allegations of bullying from her time at 3 different government departments, but a spokesman for the Home Secretary tonight saying she's always denied the allegations allegations, and there have never been any formal complaints made against her. But we're hearing tonight from sources what's in this draft report. Another saying that the findings were unambiguous in stating that Priti Patel had broken the ministerial code. There has been a suggestion as well, though, that perhaps if the investigation had found evidence of bullying, it maybe had not been intentional.
A woman whose father died with coronavirus in a care home has been granted judicial review of the decision to discharge elderly patients from hospitals without tests at the start of the pandemic. Dr. Kathy Gardner believes the policy led to outbreaks in care homes in England. Facebook says it removed more than 12 million posts containing misinformation about COVID-19 between March and October. Warning labels were added to another 167 million posts. The clothing firms Peacocks and Jaeger have gone into administration, putting almost 5,000 jobs at risk. The retailers are part of the EWM Group, whose Edinburgh woolen mill chain has already collapsed. Emma Simpson reports.
Peacocks and Jaeger were in a race against time to stave off collapse. In a statement, the Edinburgh Woolen Mill Group said it had been having constructive talks with a number of potential buyers, but things had become more complex because of the second lockdown. It's thought around 80% of staff are currently on furlough, as most of the stores had yet to reopen after the first lockdown. The administrator at FRP said it was now in advanced discussions with a number of parties and working hard to secure a future for both businesses.
3 men have appeared in court charged with people smuggling offences after a fishing boat was intercepted off the Essex coast. 2 men from Ukraine and a third from Latvia were remanded in custody. 69 Albanian nationals who were on board are being dealt with by immigration officers. Douglas Stewart has won this year's £50,000 Booker Prize for fiction. His debut novel, Shuggie Bain, tracing the story of an alcoholic mother and her son. 6 nominees were in the running, and emotional Mr. Stewart appeared virtually at the ceremony in London.
To everybody, to all the readers who have just come out and let me know that Shuggie and Agnes have touched their lives. I can't believe this, but the greatest gift is just to be able to connect with you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
And that's the BBC News at 3 minutes past 9.
Good evening. The EuroLeague show will kick off in just a moment, but there is live sport available for you right now on 5 Live Sports Extra. We have the Super League playoff semi-final between Wigan and Hull FC. Dave Woods is watching.
We have played 10 minutes of the second half and Wigan are leading 19 points to 2. Hull led 2-0 for a long time with 3 tries. Joe Burgess, Harry Smith and then Zach Hardacre into this second half has put Wigan in the driving seat. They lead by 19 points to 2 with 10 minutes of the second half play.
So that one is on Sports Extra right now. On the BBC Sport website, you can listen to live commentary from the ATP World Tour Finals at the O2. Rafa Nadal against Stefanos Tsitsipas for a place in the semi-finals. Russell Fuller's there.
Stefanos Tsitsipas leading by 4 games to 3 in the first set. His serve under pressure for the first time in the last game, but he saved 2 break points to keep his nose in front, although we're still on serve. The winner of this match qualifies for the semi-finals. Earlier, Joe Salisbury and his American partner Rajiv Ram made the last 4 of the doubles after winning their decisive group match 10-4 in a match tiebreak against the French Open champions Kravitz and Mies.
Russell, thank you very much for that one, as I say, on the BBC Sport website and app right now. Obviously, the other main news of the day is that Pep Guardiola has signed a new 2-year contract at Manchester City. We will be going in depth on that subject on the EuroLeagues on 5 Live, which is next.
5 Live Breakfast. They've been crucial to us all throughout the pandemic, but shop staff are being abused for asking customers to wear masks or socially distance.
Claire Saunders is manager of a store in Romford.
I've been threatened to be spat at and given coronavirus. I've been pushed over. It's daily occurrences with the abuse.
Oxford University says its COVID-19 vaccine has shown a promising immune response in the elderly.
Early stage results from the phase 2 trial show it triggers a robust immune response in healthy adults aged 56 to 69 and those over 70 years of age.
5 Live Breakfast. Back tomorrow from 6. This is 5 Live Sport
with Steve Crossman.
Good evening, and this is going to be a good one. I'm Steve Crossman. This is the EuroLeagues on 5 Live Sport. We're with you until question time, extra time with Adrian Chiles at 10. And with us, as always, is Guillaume Balaguer. Hello, Guillaume.
Hello, Steve. How are you?
I'm very well. And you, I have to say, have played a significant role in that, because we asked you for a big name this week, and you've delivered, haven't you?
Well, we love to talk football about ourselves, watch football and try to understand it, but it's always good to talk to someone who really knows, who has experienced it all and who's got the ability to explain it properly. So we just gave a call to Rafa Benitez, who will be with us in a bit.
Only Rafa Benitez. We've also got Julian Rock. Did you think we were talking about you there, Jules?
I was convinced. I really thought this is cool. Great welcome. Thank you very much. I'm here.
So we want you guys to get in touch. It's 85058 at 5 Live Sport. We've got some sort of topic areas that we've got lined up to talk to Rafa about. He's going to be with us for like half an hour plus. So we'd like to know your questions for Rafa Benitez. 85058 at 5 Live Sport. So just before we kind of kick off with Pep Guardiola, and Rafa's going to join us in about 5 minutes' time. Let's just get the juices flowing here. What would your burning questions be, do you think, guys?
Who wants to start? I mean, I would like to ask him if he could take time back, the watch back, would he accept the offer from Inter and the one from Real Madrid?
That's a great one.
So let's see if I feel brave enough to ask him first.
Well, this is the problem now. Whatever you say now, you're going to have to put to him, otherwise you're just going to look like you've bottled
it. Right, okay, I will.
Jules?
I think because he always has great stories, I think I would ask him who is the best player that you managed, or the one who you love managing the most, whether that be Stevie G or someone at Liverpool, someone at Valencia when he was really young in his career, I guess, or even later on at a later stage in his career. I would love to see who he picks.
I know that we're going to talk about Javier Mascherano, of course, was one of his players who's just announced his retirement. We'll talk about the Spanish national team, who are frightening at the moment, and we'll talk about his life in China and how much that's changed. We are also, by the way, before 10 o'clock, going to speak to a local journalist from North Macedonia to talk about the fact that they qualified for Euro 2020, which will be their first major tournament. We normally do like a little bit of warming up, but I think we should just go straight in because Rafa will be with us before we know it. And we do want to talk about Pep Guardiola, Guillaume, extending that contract with Manchester City until 2023.
Yes, Manchester City have made no... they haven't had the interest of wanting to keep him for as long as possible. But they always said when he was right, he would tell us that he will stay or not. One thing Manchester City asks is that please just let us know if you're not staying soon enough, because we'll have to replace you. But he's happy. He's surrounded by people that he trusts. Remember when we were talking about Bayern Munich, he used to have to explain to his bosses how the team played and why he did what he did and how they lost and why. So he doesn't need to do any of that with he controls the sporting decisions. He's happy that nothing that happens in the changing room comes out, which used to happen at Bayern and used to happen at Barcelona. And as you can see, but I think it will be more obvious after next summer, there is a renewal taking place for what it will be his second big team at Manchester City. Already new players have come in, but others will come in as well. But while there was the uncertainty about his future, of course the club couldn't commit or try, if they were trying to convince certain players, they couldn't say we cannot guarantee if Pep will be there. Well, now he will be there. And one thing that by saying it now, one thing that he's managed to do is that his name will not appear in the election to Barcelona, which is on the 24th of January. As we know, and as we said here, there were offers from Juventus, from PSG. The whole thing, and right now he feels absolutely happy. One thing though, it's a 2-year deal. We'll need to know if it's 1 + 1, 2 years, because I feel that he will be perhaps even happier with having the door open in case at some point he feels, well, this is it, my job is done. But right now he's in the middle of a renewal of the sport.
I think it makes sense. It makes sense for him, like Guillaume rightly explained, because he's in there with people he trusts. Ferran Soriano and Chiki Begarishan, they're so close to each other, those three, the way they run the club. Khaldoun Al-Mubarak, the city chairman, loves Pep, and Pep explained today that he had a long chat during the international break with Khaldoun, who in a way convinced him to stay, or ending to convince him to stay, but also for City, because it must be a big relief. If Pep had gone or decided to leave at the end of the season, you need to go and get a new manager. It's a new project. You start from scratch again. Maybe the new manager doesn't want the players that you have. Maybe he's asked you for to change half of the squad or something like that. Maybe it's could be a different style of football. There's many reasons or things that could happen. At least now that continuity will make them stronger for sure. And like Guillaume was saying, they halfway through changing a new project, if you want, there. And I think now they will all be really happy to be on board.
And also the plan stays on course. The plan was go to 2 or 3 top leagues in Europe. That was a plan I heard when he was at the beginning of his stay at Barcelona. So now it's been the Bundesliga, Premier League, and after this, a national side. That was the plan. I don't know if we'll stick to it, but so far so good. And after Manchester City, where are you going to go with the with how happy he is, facilities, the quality of the players? It may be then that certainly he won't go to Barcelona to coach. We know that. But it may be just trying to find a national team that wants him.
I've absolutely no doubt, Guillaume, that the big question that City fans will have off the back of this announcement is, does this mean we're going to sign Messi?
Did you hear Messi only a couple of days ago, after 15 hours flight from Argentina and 1 hour having to deal with a taxman who walked into the jet and asked all kinds of documentation to the jet driver. Is that how you call it? The pilot.
Yeah.
To the pilot.
Jet
and
driver
to him,
is good as well.
Yeah, I prefer that, I think.
But anyway, so he was quite pissed off, and then he came out and there was fans and there was a journalist and a few of them actually, and they asked him what did you think of what somebody who used to be the agent of Griezmann a few years ago said about your influence on the side, basically